Video games. We see them everywhere we go. On TV, in magazines, in movies, and in our own living rooms. Many of us have fond memories of them from our childhoods. Many of us play them now. They give us a chance to retreat from reality, if only for a moment, and allow us to live out some of our wildest dreams. To be famous, to be wealthy, to be a hero. As time progresses, they are becoming more and more woven into the framework of our society. It is now time to delve into the rich history that is video games, from the humble beginnings to where we are now. It is a story of joy and deceit, of gain and loss. The story of a dream gone wild. The story of a dream come true. The story of the video game. Our tale begins in 1966. Ralph Baer sat alone at a bus stop on his way home from work. On this particular day, he reflected upon all of the technological advancements that had been made since he was a child. When all of a sudden, he had a revelation. He realized that by combining the technology of William Higginbotham's 1958 Tennis for Two and MIT's 1961 Space War, that he could create an interactive game console for the home television set. When he arrived home, Ralph wrote a 4-page document detailing his ideas. The next day he showed it to his dear friend and associate, Bill Harrison.
Well, here we are, playing ping pong when we ought to be working.
Together, the two men worked in secret for months, creating a prototype of their dream. In 1969, Baer brought an example with true promise, known as the Brown Box, to Sanders' R&D department. Little did he know, he was showing off what would soon be the first home video game console. In 1971, as work on Baer's project was underway, the MIT scientists behind Space War figured out a way that they could easily replicate it. They renamed it Computer Space and had the first 1,500 arcade machines created. Although Computer Space was a failure, two of the masterminds behind it created their own company, Atari Incorporated. In 1972, Atari released Pong, the first video game with widespread success. Later that year, Ralph Baer released the Magnavox Odyssey, officially commencing the first generation of video games. By 1973, through powerful advertisement, including TV commercials featuring Frank Sinatra, over 100,000 Odyssey units had been sold, which was only the beginning of the 2 million units sold in total. The Odyssey dominated the video game market for 5 years, until, during the holiday season of 1977, Atari released the Atari 2600 along with 9 games, summoning the start of the second generation of video games. In the following 5 years, 2 more consoles joined the race, the Intellivision in 1980 and the ColecoVision in 1982. For the first time in history, 4 major consoles crowded the market, and, with no small help from the glut of terrible games, interest in video games began to dwindle. Little did anyone know that, in less than a year, the future of video games could come to a premature end. When companies received their sales numbers in 1983, a panic spread through the industry. Many companies went bankrupt, while others, in a panic to bump up numbers, developed games in mere months. Atari desperately released 2 games that have gone down in history for being the worst games ever made, and may very well have been responsible for the dire video game crash of 1983. The first was Pac-Man for the Atari 2600. Atari had 15 million copies made, even though there had only been 12 million consoles sold. The second, being the worst game ever made, was E.T. the Extraterrestrial. 5 million copies had been produced, and then President and CEO stated that nearly all of them had come back. With 5 million copies of E.T., 5 million copies of Pac-Man, and thousands of unsold, outdated consoles, so Atari sent 14 truckloads of unsellable merchandise from their plant in El Paso, Texas, to Alamogordo, New Mexico, where steamrollers crushed and flattened the merchandise, sealed it in concrete blocks, and buried it in a landfill, never again to see the light of day. Just when all seemed to be lost, a new hope shone over the horizon. Like a phoenix reborn from the ashes, in 1985, Nintendo stepped up and saved the broken industry with their release of the NES, which came bundled with Super Mario Bros. The system was an instant hit and dominated the market for close to 10 years. This was the 3rd generation, and it was the generation of new birth. With the release of The Legend of Zelda, Final Fantasy, and Metal Gear, the world of video games was looking better than it ever had. It looked like Nintendo would be on the top forever, until the 1991 release of Sega's Mega Drive and Sonic the Hedgehog, the first character to rival Mario. After Nintendo's release of the Super Nintendo Entertainment System in 1989, 2 consoles came into the spotlight, both claiming to be the best. The Sega Genesis
What Nintendo
and the TurboGrafx 16.
It's 4 times faster, so the games are more exciting.
As the 5th generation dawned, it only got worse with the 1993 release of the 3DO Interactive Multiplayer.
If you're not playing on a 3DO system, what are you playing with?
And the Atari Jaguar.
Some of you believe your system is the most advanced in the universe. Let's review the numbers. Sega Genesis is 16 bits. 3DO is 32 bits. The Atari Jaguar is 64 bits. Which is more advanced? Clifford! Which is more advanced? Clifford!
Can you repeat the question?
Jaguar! Jaguar! Jaguar!
In 1995, Sony decided to give the video game market a try and released the PlayStation, which quickly outsold every other system except the now aging Super Nintendo Entertainment System. Nintendo, afraid of Sony pulling ahead, released the Nintendo 64 in 1996, bundled with Super Mario 64.